Hello everyone, welcome to today's session where we're going to look at the poem The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. This is the poem which is often regarded as one of the quintessential modernist poems, reflecting on social and intellectual conditions of the early 20th century. This poem is Eliot's one of the earliest major works. It was written in 1910 but not published until 1915. This poem is an examination of the tortured psyche of a modern man who is overeducated, eloquent, neurotic, and emotionally stilted. As in this poem, we find that this poem reflects the thoughts of a man who is in the search of love in an uncertain world. As despite being educated, even overeducated, this man hesitates. This man is indecisive. Though he knows how to express or what to speak, but he doesn't find himself inappropriate, or he doesn't decide, or he is so much in frustrated or struck condition, which we will which we'll see during the reading of the poem. And we'll also find that throughout the poem the speaker is narrating, or the speaker is talking about his intentions to his implied reader, and all his talks as he goes further in his relationship and observation, but everything he goes in his mind, and he physically remains at one place. So this is what we can observe in this poem. And some of the primary themes of this poem are anxiety, desire, and disappointment. So this is what the brief outline of this poem. So let's move on to the textual analysis of this poem. And before I begin the text, I would like to draw your attention towards the title of the poem. The title of the poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. This title might seem to you enchanting, which can be full of ripe memories of love. But the situation is quite contrary, as this poem actually captures unexpressed love and the fragmented thoughts of a man, of the speaker. The speaker here is a man who is middle aged, who is in love, with the lady, but he has no courage to express his feelings for her. And this is what goes on in the poem. And along with it, we will also find his regret of aging, his frustrations due to his unfulfilled desires. So these all regret and frustrations also run through, or also remain at the core of the poem. So let's begin the text. And as you can see that text, that it is a 6-line epigraph written in Italian, and this epigraph has been taken from Canto 27 of Dante's Inferno. Inferno is a medieval Italian poem which traces the pilgrim's journey through hell, where this pilgrim meets various sinners who tells about their, or who talks about, or who tells him about his about their sufferings. And it is in hell, the pilgrim meets this character Guido da Montefeltro, and this 6-line epigraph is spoken by this character Guido. And this epigraph is spoken by him when the pilgrim asks Guido about about his sins, when he asks that what has he done that he is in hell. So this is how Guido responds in these 6 lines. And these lines in yellow color are the exact translation of these Italian lines. I am reading out it to you. So this is how Guido responds to the pilgrim. If I thought that my reply would be to someone who would ever return to earth, this flame would remain without further movement. But as no one has ever returned alive from this gulf, if what I hear is true, I can answer you with no fear of infamy. So now, on the literal level, it is quite clear that Guido is simply telling the pilgrim that he has no fear, or he has no concern, or he has no anxiety in talking about his sins to him, because as pilgrim has entered in the hell, so Guido knows and Guido believes that the pilgrim would never be able to go back to the earth, and in this way if he discloses, if Guido discloses his sins to the pilgrim, then there is no harm, or there is no anxiety or tension of, or no fear of infamy in it, because the world will never come to know about his sins or his evil deeds, because the pilgrim would never be able to go back. So this is what the epigraph says. And now the obvious question arises is that why would Eliot choose these 6 lines as his epigraph to this poem, epigraph of this poem? So there can be several reasons. One of the reasons which we can relate here is that this poem is a monologue by Prufrock, who is a very insecure person, who is very hesitant in disclosing or in divulging his secrets to the world. So this person is talking to someone. So here we can find the reason, or here we can find the identity of the implied reader, that the implied reader or the implied listener to whom Prufrock is talking. So as Prufrock has his own insecurities, so this epigraph makes it perfectly clear that Prufrock here is not telling to any external party, while he is talking to his own self, where he is confident enough that it is not going to out, or nobody will come to know about his intentions, which he calls evil intentions, as he thinks so. So this is what this epigraph we can relate to. And one more thing, that this epigraph also tells us that this monologue is not going to be a dramatic monologue. This is more of an internal monologue, in that sense, where Prufrock is talking to his own self. So let's move on to the text. I'm reading out now. Let us go then, you and I. So the speaker is saying, let us go together, you and I. Now here this phrase you and I may have 2 interpretations, or may have 2 meanings, where you may mean this pronoun you may mean Prufrock's companion, or you and I mean Prufrock's 2 selves, the one romantic self and the second one realist self. So this we can find, or we can understand from this opening line. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky. Now when to go? When the darkness of evening spreads over the sky, and this evening looks like a patient etherized upon a table. Now here there is a use of simile, or more of a conceit, because here very 2 contrasting entities are put together, are juxtaposed, evening and the patient etherized upon a table. So evening is looking like a patient who is made unconscious with anesthetics. The patient is anesthetized while lying on the table. And here this patient etherized is also telling us the identity, or telling us the personality of Prufrock himself, who lacks the motivation, who lacks the courage. Patient unconsciousness, Prufrock unconscious, who lacks the motivation. So this can be another meaning which we can take out. So when to go? When the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go, let us walk together through certain half deserted streets. Now they have to go through streets. The streets are half deserted, as in the evening the people leave the streets and go to their homes. So these half deserted, these streets are almost lonely. The muttering retreats of restless nights in one night cheap hotels. Now these streets are also the retreats of the muttering people. Now why these people are muttering? Why these people are mumbling? So these people are mumbling or muttering because their nights are restless, because they have stayed, because they are staying in cheap hotels, as these are the people who can't afford for paying in good hotels, so they stay for one night in cheap hotel. But But while their stay in cheap hotel, due to their inadequate rest and sleep, they feel restless, and due to their restlessness, they mumble in their sleep. They can't have sound sleep, so they mumble in their sleep. So their retreats in these half deserted streets, the retreat of the people are muttering. The people mutter, the people mumble. So these retreats are muttering of restless nights in one night cheap hotels, and so does restaurants with oyster shells. And these are the people who visit dirty restaurants, the floor of which are full of sawdust and oyster shells. Now this dirty floor of restaurant is in direct contrast with the carpet covered floor of the rich houses and the good hotels. So this is what the opening line says, where the speaker is inviting his companion, who can be his own self, to move through the streets and where to go. So see the next lines. Streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent. Now they have to go through the streets which have a winding course. The winding course like a very never ending argument. This winding course of streets is just like a never ending argument, and which also seems to have these streets, this tedious argument, this never ending course, this winding course, this labyrinthine course of these streets seem to have a concealed purpose, a concealed desire, as this course of the street with its concealed desire is leading them towards an overwhelming question, to lead you to an overwhelming question. Now here we can sense that these streets also run through the mind of the psyche of the speaker, as these streets are leading him to an overwhelming question. So this we can see these lines at the literal and figurative level as well, where the streets through their tedious and never-ending argument, just like a never-ending argument, like a concealed purpose, leading them towards an overwhelming question. Now here we can also guess this overwhelming question can be the proposal, can be the marriage proposal which Prufrock is going to propose to his lady love, his supposed lady love. Oh, do not ask what is it. Now here Prufrock is very insecure and doesn't want to tell the question, tell the very reason of their visit. So he said, don't ask what is it. He's concealing it, he's hiding the question. Let us go and make our visit. So he's planning and he's making his visit. Where he is making his visit? In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. Now Prufrock and his companion are making their visit to the room where a party is going on and where women are coming and going, and they are talking about the grand subjects like Michelangelo. Michelangelo is a 16th century Italian painter, and here there's a put of satire by Eliot here, as he is implying here that these women are just showing off. They do not know much about his art, about the art of Michelangelo. They are just showing off. So this is indicating the hollowness of the society, and it is also suggestive, and it is also a satire on the pretensions of the modern women. So this is what these lines are, just like a satire. In the room, so where the Prufrock is intending to go to move, in the room the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. So this is what the introductory session of this poem. In the following session we'll continue this poem, and thank you for now.